Hello, MR Safety friends, and welcome to MR Safety Talks. I'm your host, Kelly Mantooth, and today we are going to be talking about a very hot topic in MRI right now, and that is remote scanning. And there's no one better to join us to discuss that than Kristan Harrington. Kristan, thanks for joining me.
Oh gosh, Kelly, I just can't thank you and Metrosend more for having me on, and especially during such an important time during MR Safety Week. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I'm excited for us to dive in. But before we start talking about remote MRI, if anybody is new here and they don't know anything about you, I'd say they've been living under a rock. But if they're new here, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, there must be a lot of rocks out there because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have not heard of me. I have been doing MRI for 29 years, which makes me, what, am I 30 now? I mean, come on, seriously. Just, keeping it real. I just started Emory University here in Atlanta. That's where I went to school. And I was with them for a few years, and then doing research. I was approached by a corporation where I did applications in advanced and a lot of beta testing. And from there, I became self-employed and also went on faculty back at Emory University doing their bachelor's degree program. And worked closely with Bill Faulkner and William Faulkner and Associates. And for several years now, I've had my own company. I'm the owner, T2 Star Radiology Solutions. So that is enough about me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So now I'm curious, how did you get into remote scanning and when did remote scanning first come onto the scene?
Okay, so this is going to come across as absolutely crazy, but I really became interested in it. It was in the early 2000s, and I know people are going, "What in the world?" And when I was, 6 months old, based upon the age line we're giving myself, but there was a program called LOTS, and when I was doing applications and we were having difficulty, this started out as a service
Hmm.
um, that was provided when people got new equipment. And we would have trouble, and LOTS stood for look over the shoulder. So
Hmm.
have that. You call for the remote assistance at another location, and then something would pop up on the user interface, and we would give the person in service the ability to go ahead and take over the interface. And they were
Hmm.
able to do diagnostics from, all over the place. We only did this in the US, so I don't know if we could, go with the international team, but I know that we did this within the US, and they were able to do a lot of things without traveling on site. Now, what were the issues? Major issues: lag time. The mouse would go from here for like 20 seconds to here, and all over the place. So there was a lot of things, but it started for me in the early 2000s being very intrigued because what we were able to do remotely was service.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I don't think a lot of people know that that was kind of the inception of remote scanning. That it's
Well,
like,
for
oh my
me,
goodness. But everybody now, I think, when they hear remote scanning, they think, oh, some tech sitting at home in their PJs, drinking their coffee, scanning a patient. And I don't think they realize that this has been around for, in some form, for quite
Mhm.
some time. So, how have we seen it evolve from look over the shoulder scanning to maybe where it is today?
Well, I don't know. I know that it has exploded. Let's just say
Hmm.
that. So it's evolved definitely. As far as the look over the shoulder, I'm sure it's called multiple things based upon the manufacturer, but in some way of taking over your system. Again, I talked about the network limitations that we have.
Yeah.
With that being said, as that's evolved, then our needs have evolved. And so now we've come to this point.
Yeah.
And I would say probably, I don't know, Kelly, 7, 8 years ago, um, 6 years ago, we had big changes
Yeah.
in the US worldwide. And with that, the need, the demand shot out the roof. And now that's
Mhm.
not from the service standpoint
Right.
necessarily. I'm sure that was still there, but this transferred over to we need people to be able to do these scans. We need people to be able to perform them. And
Yeah.
so it really jumped. And another thing that jumped is MR, and I'll just use CT. No, no, nothing towards CT text, but that big hovering cloud of that ionizing radiation versus the non-ionizing. A lot of exams shifted from being, going from this type. Now we can do this in MRI and
Yep.
get the same results.
Yep.
And, they even have things that show cortical bone now in MRI. I don't know if you've seen those new techniques. It's crazy. So they moved toward that. So the demand increased there, the demand because of the different things we can do, and the number of people that
Yeah.
are able to perform the scans just went great, down. I mean, have you heard that as well, Kelly?
Yeah, especially since COVID, I think there's been such a big impact. I don't know if it was people leaving the field or what, but since COVID, it almost feels like you said, the number of exams has skyrocketed. MR scanners are much faster now than they used to be, and the number of personnel that can perform an MR exam just hasn't kept up with the amount of patients or exams that are needed.
I'm not sure when you left scanning. So I'm still a PRN tech. And I was with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta for 14 years.
Hmm.
And I will tell you, just from that huge institution, a lot of people decided, hey, I'm close to retirement.
Yeah.
We've had this big shift in, what's going on as far as the environment with, the health scares with, as you spoke to, COVID, that they decided, I'll go ahead and retire early. I heard this about other organizations. People changed their, career paths altogether
Yeah.
because people didn't want to go into an office or into a facility. So I
Yeah.
think that was a big trigger point as far as how
Yeah.
do we meet this demand. Now, as far as teleradiologists, from the radiologist
Hmm.
interpreting, that's been around forever.
Long
So this
time.
is just a shift as far as the technologist and what
Yeah.
we're doing now.
Yeah. I think compounded with, there were already increased demands on implants, patient safety, and we're already doing all of that with not an increase in staff. I'm not going to say less staff, but without an increase in staff. And then now it feels like those demands keep going up, and now we're doing it with fewer and fewer staff. So some of the things that I think remote can solve for is, or maybe I'll let you speak to that. What do you believe that are the benefits of remote scanning?
So, the first thing I will say is that when I started I had a long journey with this. I would travel to facilities and, you know, then I would do education for them, level one or level two. So they would let me come in and just see how they were operating. And I went to
Mhm.
all the places and I learned all the good things and all the bad things.
Yeah.
And the first thing I heard about, as far as being able to be a remote scanning technologist, was that it was for advanced scans, for people that need cardiac or for breast. And
Hmm.
then I was traveling to all these different places, and it was just access to exams.
Yeah.
And so when I walk into a room, and I did my first talk, I won't say where I was located. There was probably 300 to 400 people in the room. So it wasn't like there was, 10 people that were, but I said, raise your hand if you don't like the idea or ability to be able to remotely scan. And I think maybe three people that knew me and knew why I was there and knew my journey. Everybody else raised their hand saying, I'm 100% against this. And so I said, listen to me. And I showed him my journey. I showed him what I've been through. And I said, this is not just about, and I showed a video. I have two videos, one of me meditating, and then another one with my trusty 8 ball, that answers every possible question, or
Hmm.
my Rubik's Cube. And it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about scanning in a controlled environment. It's about, giving people the ability not to have to drive an hour just to get their brain done, their lumbar spine done. Yeah, there is quality assurance involved,
Hmm.
Kelly, because we do want to have that oversight of.
Yeah.
is the same protocol in this large institution that being that we're getting different image quality. Is
Yeah.
it a system issue or
Yeah.
is it a protocol drift issue from one fifth? So
Mhm.
there is quality assurance. And I think that that would make me a little standoffish if I knew somebody was constantly, checking me out and maybe somebody else had changed the protocol. But then it does also allow for training, new
Yeah.
people that are coming in. So that's a huge positive. People that want to be cross-trained,
Mhm.
new people that are being onboarded, and just having. If you do need to be able to do a cardiac exam, advanced breast examination. If you're assisting with a breast biopsy, a prostate ablation,
Yeah.
I've been involved with that recently, earlier in the year, PRN. So being able to do that, it has all of these different huge, huge things, not just addressing that shortage.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it's cost effective. It
Mhm.
really is, but it has to be done correctly.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. Yeah, I also want to say that, we started out with just a few vendors. And I will say that I've done some research. Nobody, please make, comments to Kelly or Metrosens. But what I have researched is that I know of for sure 100% today that there are at least four companies that do have the 510K FDA approval for use in the United States.
Mhm.
Now, that could have, grown an hour ago, Kelly.
Yeah.
An hour ago. We don't know how, times change, but
Yeah.
that means that they can be used within the US according to the FDA and how they were presented to them. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But what's the pitfall there? I want you guys to make sure that you verify that you can't take someone's word necessarily for it, that it's going to be vendor agnostic. Now, the first time someone said, vendor agnostic to me, would that come across a little silly as a phrase to you, Kelly? Maybe vendor agnostic. Well, maybe I'm a little slower than everybody else. I saw the look on your face, and so when I heard when I heard vendor agnostic to begin with, I had to think about it, and basically it just means okay, I'm from this vendor, so I'm from
Mhm.
this manufacturer, but I can connect to all of the
Mhm.
other manufacturers
Yep.
seamlessly. But I
Mhm.
want you guys, that are thinking about this, that are looking into it, I want you guys to be really careful because you want to see how far back they can go for the
Yeah.
system software, the version that you have. Want to make sure that you always, trust what they're saying. Obviously, that they're telling you to the best of their ability from these different
Mhm.
manufacturers, but just make sure it works.
Yeah.
Because even though we've got this 510K approval and vendor agnostic, which by your face, I guess I'm the only person that's watching this that would not know what that meant initially. But had I asked the eight ball, I would have known. Um, for certain. Had I asked that, but I didn't understand. But I do know one vendor called me and they said we actually just connected to a 1998 this
Wow.
manufacturer. They said, was it easy? And they said, Kristen, was it easy? And I was like, I don't know. They said, absolutely not. But they did it. They did it. They did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So see what they're able to do with you to make sure you're getting what you're purchasing. I
Yeah.
don't have a preference, obviously
Yeah.
even I wouldn't even go there.
Yeah. You know, I
Um,
I draw some comparisons and you have to tell me if you agree or disagree with this. But it wasn't too long ago that the MR industry said, we're going to start scanning pacemakers. And if you remember some of the reactions to scanning pacemakers, people were like, absolutely not. That cannot be safe. We're not going to do that. I mean, for years and years, Kristen, signs on Zone 4 entries had like a no pacemaker, like do not come in here. And so I draw correlations to that, or even scanning just active implanted medical devices to remote scanning. I think there's that initial knee jerk reaction of, well, we're scared of what we don't know, right? The brain wants to go to what's familiar. What's familiar to us is we've not scanned pacemakers. What's familiar to us is we've not done remote scanning. What do you think are some of the initial concerns maybe that you've heard of with remote scanning?
Okay, so just full circle back to that really big, okay, a really, really unkind statement had come out on one of the social platforms, 2 days before I spoke about doing remote scanning. And then I had all those people, raise their hands, but
Yeah.
maybe two or three. At the end of that talk, I said, how many people understand and believe in remote scanning? And everybody raised their hands. And to this day, not that I'm a sentimental person, this past year, I'll turn it around so you can't see, it's a special coin on the other side. Won't show, but just said that I have really educated them and changed their thought process in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of them, because a naysayer just up on the front row and just was totally against it. So
Yeah.
through conversation and what you're saying, the adoption of the first MR conditional pacemaker was the Revo in the United States of America, which was called the Advisa at that time in
Yep.
Canada. So those were the first two factually built from the ground up, um, FDA approved. And so when that came out, I helped with the adoption of that. And so I kind of believe that I might be assisting in this process as well. And that's why I do a lot of these different types of presentations. Is
Hmm.
I'm not being paid by different vendors to
Right.
do these things. You have to understand that this is actually something. I used to say it's coming.
It's here now.
Now I say it's here, and it's been here.
Yep.
And is it being done well at some places? 100%. At other places,
Yeah.
no. Lots of opportunity for improvement. I just always call it opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And opportunity comes, when education is implemented.
Yep.
That is, and they come together, and then what does that equal? Success,
Yep.
right? And safety. So then that goes right into MR safety.
Yep.
And so it just comes, that adoption. So my thing, because of the 29 plus years in MR, mine came with aneurysm clips.
Yeah.
So that's when my big, oh, how do
Yep.
I ever scan this? And then when I went out and started doing consulting, it really was, doing these active implants, which again change hourly, and being
Mm-hmm.
a part of helping to adopt that. I feel like I help with that, but I only do it on things that I truly believe in.
Yeah.
And done correctly, I'm 1,000% behind this.
Yeah.
Done correctly is the big thing that I want to say here. And done correctly is not just having that, expertise, not just having someone that's able. Some people can't do two scans at a time. Not just having those things there in place, the right environment,
Mm-hmm.
it's doing it safely.
Yep.
And that's what we're doing here. We're trying to make people understand that we're not just blowing caution to the wind.
Right. Right. There's an evolution of MR. I mean, and as there should be, because it's still a
Hmm.
relatively new modality, and I think that's why I draw so many comparisons to scanning pacemakers, because at first we saw this resistance like, we're not doing that. We've been told that's unsafe. And now, Kristen, I don't think it's uncommon for people to scan pacemakers even off label, and we don't even bat an eye. We're just like, oh, another pacemaker. I think, admittedly, I have probably said they're one of the easier active implants that we do now, and that has evolved. I mean, even early on in my career, we weren't scanning pacemakers. So I think, like you said, remote scanning is here. And now, how do we ensure that it's here, just like scanning pacemakers, that we do it appropriately, that we do it safely? So, what do you think maybe safe remote scanning looks like? Or what do you think some of the concerns with safe scanning remotely looks like? What about if, I think there are a few different formats, right? There could be somebody scanning from home, there could be somebody scanning remotely, but maybe they're in the same building on a different floor, or maybe they're in a remote building that's still a part of the facility's network. What are, am I speaking out of turn? Are those all correct ways that remote scanning is handled?
You are spot on. You said, and the only thing that I'll expand upon is sometimes people are using some of their outpatient areas to have some people, but there are also independent companies
Mm-hmm.
that now there's multiple ones of those that have these groups of technologists that they've hired. And, if you were to be scanning from your home, the things I would just, people say, sign me up, coach, put me in the game. I want to do my Rubik's Cube and scan my two scans at one time. And you keep hearing me say two exams
Yeah.
because when you start to go above that, then I'm going to get a little bit nervous. Other
Right.
people might come back and say, Kristen's 100% wrong. Again, that's where I'm going to stick to right now. That's
Yeah.
again a part of my safety comfort level. It may not be everybody's. A strong network that's evolved over time.
Yeah.
Um, Again, the techs that are able, because some technologists at one facility I went to, they were having trouble finding remote scanning technologists that ended up being comfortable doing more than one exam at a time. I
Yeah.
did not know that was an existing issue. And then also, if I were to scan from my office right now, I
Mm-hmm.
do live in Atlanta. We occasionally get the thunderstorm here and there. And it seems to be that living in a little historic part of Atlanta that we lose power if the wind blows wrong. So I do have a backup generator.
Mm-hmm.
I also have enough kids to make a soccer team, and so we have three, just shy of like a player or two, but we have three separate internets because I
Yeah.
want that strong internet, which
Yeah.
has evolved so much now. And
Mm-hmm.
so my husband has one, I have one, and then the kids have one. And so, but then there would be that slight drop off and that disconnect. And we're going to talk about this safety wise with the MR safety tech on the local side. They'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Where's Kristen? Where'd she go?"
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
within like, I think it takes less than a minute, 30 seconds, that backup generator is going to kick
Kicks
in.
back
They're going to
on.
have me right back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those evolutions and having that stuff, if you were to be doing it from a home location, the other thing I think that one I know one company is doing, can't say that all of them, is I believe that we are going to have cameras on the MR safety techs at the local side. I think there should also be cameras on the scanning remote, wherever they're located, MR technologists. I believe they should be held to the same standard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people seen that video float around with me with my, slippers on and my pajamas and stuff. That is not what this is about. It is
Mm-hmm.
not. So,
We have to have some way to ensure that when people hear, oh, I can scan from home, it's not just a field day to go down and do your dishes or go out and go for a run while you've got a 15-minute scan on the table. It's still scanning, and you're still expected to provide a certain level of care to the patient that's in your care.
they are. They are. And so you have to kind of look at the local side, which you'll hear me say local side MR safety tech, and
Hmm.
then you'll hear me say scanning technologist. So scanning technologists can either be on the local side, or
Hmm.
you hear me say remote
Yeah.
scanning technologist, which means upstairs, at the same, hospital in a reading room environment.
Yeah.
That can mean at the outpatient center that you talked about. That could be at an office with a separate company, or that can be within the comfort of my own home.
Hmm.
So all those different environments, you'll hear me refer to it in the different, excuse me, and the different safety things that you have to put into play.
Yeah.
All of that has to come together simultaneous each and every time. But we know that right now we still have incidents with just MRI technologists at the scanner.
Local. Yeah.
So anecdotally, and I have asked multiple facilities that I have been to, would you please collect data? Because anecdotally, they're telling me that. So don't hold me to this again. I've said this three times now, I think. but they're saying that they are having less reported incidents because of the implementation of MR safety techs. So
Okay.
if you think about it,
Yeah.
that's could be true done correctly.
Yeah. Well, think about, and I want to get into, you've mentioned this MR safety tech a couple of times now, and so I want to get into that. But if you think about what some of the differences could be between remote and local scanning, Kristen, you know, I know this. When you're a local tech, gosh, you have like 30 things that you're trying to do while you're scanning that patient. I'm looking up the next patient's implant. I'm answering the phone. There's somebody at the door. The floor is calling, wanting to know when their patient's going to be done. The rat's calling, asking why this patient moved. And it's like, did you read the text? No. There's just so many things that we're responsible for when you're sitting in front of a scanner, taking care of a patient. That's not just patient care. Our responsibility as technologists has increased, I would say, over the years. So I can see a correlation to a reduction in incidents if all the technologist has to worry about now is scanning that patient. But let's get back to this MR safety tech that you've talked about. Do you want to talk about a little further about that?
Um, well, I want to speak to what you said
Okay.
about so yes, I know what you're talking about. The phone's ringing, you have to begin an exam in your exam, put
Mm-hmm.
notes in, and that's into the electronic medical records.
Yeah.
I'm also used to, and I'm sure you are as well, being the person to come to about any type of implant or device because they don't have another MR safety officer there. And even though that's not my role, I'm truly just a PRN tech. I do get those questions. And so I do that. And then I also get protocol optimization questions about why is my fluid not bright enough? What's going on here? The doctor's mad and they'll say, well, I'll fix it, but that means come to Kristen first. So well, I mean, they sometimes have to end up calling someone else, but I do the best I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
to have all of those hats on.
Yep.
So what if we went back to the original ACR? Let's come back to, why we have MR Safety Week, Michael Colombini,
Mm-hmm.
that horrible situation that occurred.
Yeah.
We got this, ACR paper, is what it was called back in 2002.
It was much,
Verbal and
much
visual.
smaller than it is now.
You know, I don't even want to go there. Yeah, every time it comes out, it's like,
A
okay,
little
well,
bit
I got
longer.
2 days. Yeah, let me take 2 days this time, and so I was looking at it yesterday. No, but verbal and visual, that to me is almost comical at this point
Yeah.
because I am glancing up at a patient, pushing down very quickly to talk to them and
Mm-hmm.
hoping I release before I start talking about them or another patient that
Yeah.
they don't even know, thinking, that I'm still talking to them about something that might be up with them.
Yeah.
So the concentration level is diminished
Yeah.
greatly for that actual patient on the table.
Yep.
So having a MR scanning technologist at the facility or someone that is several hundred miles away or
Mm-hmm.
upstairs, and then still having that MR safety tech
Mm-hmm.
with their different roles and responsibilities can truly allow us as MRI technologists to see and look at the patient, verbal, visual,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll take, trust me, Kelly, you can understand this. I'm going to want to reach over and I'm going to want to grab that phone. I'm going to be the one to say, hey, that's a balanced technique. You got to have an 8TR and a 4TE. It's got to be balanced. You're
Yeah.
not going to get the flute. You're not going to get that intrinsic flow compensation.
Yep.
I'm still going to want to do it. But over time, just like going back to that adoption of the pacemakers,
Yeah.
for me, the adoption of the, intracranial aneurysm clips, it will become something that we are so comfortable with that
Yep.
it will make our lives, honestly, I think job satisfaction will go up. I do. And when I go to facilities and they say we have huge staffing shortages, I wish I had a stack of papers. Well, I do, but I'm just not going to pull them out. Um, but they'll say that, okay, so if this was a stack of paper, This is how many, it's negative the amount of MR techs that are applying.
Oh
But for
no.
people that are applying for MR safety tech positions, they've
Mm-hmm.
got a stack.
Yep.
And some of those places I've been to, and you know, people can be very upset with me about this, but some of them I think pay more attention and they take so much pride in their job as the MR safety tech that they work. They're tremendous. They're such an
Mm-hmm.
asset
Mm-hmm.
to the environment. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, even you said, without saying it directly, old habits die hard. It is in our nature. This is who we've evolved to be, to answer the phone, to clear this implant, to look at this next patient, to help your coworker set up a scan, modify parameters, but an MR safety tech, which we haven't talked about yet,
Yeah.
they don't know a different world. They don't know this, oh, we started here and we've evolved to this. They know what today is, right? So do you want to jump in? Are you comfortable jumping in a little bit about what an MR safety tech is?
I'm perfectly comfortable with jumping in with you, Kelly. We can go anywhere. We've got this covered. You are brilliant. So whenever you want to jump into anything, um, I think that it is a distinction, I think is the way I'm going to word it. I've not heard it worded this way. A distinction and a clear distinction between roles and responsibilities of
Yeah.
what is going to fall into one column as an
Yeah.
MR safety tech, and then another column that is shorter,
Yeah.
higher amount of, and I have to get this, remind me about like scanning and implants and
Okay.
devices. There's another list that applies to these scanning technologists, whether on the local side with MR Safety Tech and or whether they are at a remote location.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing those roles and responsibilities, then if I am sitting at the console, sitting directly here, and I'm typing away and doing my thing, then I know that I have, here in my EMR, electronic medical records, that I've got, three patients. One is arrived, one's in, these different areas of their process. I should, at some point, someone should say the next patient is screened. And I should pretty much just be able to go like this, and the screening form is filled out. That
Mm-hmm.
is their responsibility. I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting at the very basics.
Yep.
That is their responsibility. Is it their responsibility to know implants and devices and to make that determination? No. They are to get the paperwork for me.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the paperwork. I see if there's anything on there. And but that starts with good paperwork. Let's just go ahead and say that. Because I've seen some of those be nightmares. And then I go through that and then I determine, do I have an MR safety officer that I go to that has that title? Or do I go to the reading or the supervising
Yeah.
radiologist, I'll make clear, um, to make final determination, risk versus benefit about this patient being imaged.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that role does not include an MR safety tech unless it is the standard operating procedure of
The
a
facility.
local facility
Mm-hmm.
that they are to be contacting the radiologist in most situations. And the reason for that is that the MR technologist should know the entire scope.
Yeah.
An MR safety tech is going to be trained with a certain, level of knowledge. Maybe that starts with things that we have, basic life support, ACLS, there's certain different things that, you might start with that we all have together. But as far as the division of roles and responsibilities, having that umbrella overview,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're the we're going to do role playing. You are the radiologist right now.
Okay.
Are you going to want the call to be from someone that has been trained and someone in their roles and responsibilities as an MR safety tech? Or would you rather have the call come from an MR technologist that understands the complete picture, and
Yeah.
within that picture, also the protocol, especially when it comes to an implanted device. Who do you want to speak to, Dr. Kelly?
I think Dr. Kelly would like to talk to the MR technologist because, as the radiologist, I might say, hey, I want you to run a gradient echo instead of a T1, or I want you to change this parameter instead of doing this. Or, I might be asking questions that only a technologist would be able to answer.
And that's true. I mean, when I started at Emory, I started as a patient care tech aide. That's what MR safety techs were called back then. And so I was a patient care tech aide. And someone actually, when they started letting me scan, after I cleaned up vomit and did coils for about a good year. And so what they started doing was someone was writing X, Y, and Z, as far as like what plane I was supposed to do. You have
Yeah.
to understand there was no MR degree back when I went to school.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to ask anybody any questions because we only have four techs at Emory. We're talking that's for all the scanners, four techs.
Wow.
And so we were a little bit busy to say the least. So I see this X, and I see like a P with a thing on top of it. And I see all just the stuff that I don't know what it means. I mean, I took so many years of Latin, but none of this was Latin to me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just picked a plane and gave Gad and did a T2 post contrast. And so basically, can we just say that I did it completely wrong? Okay, because and I felt it. Trust me. At Emory, the radiologist, as I'm assuming that at all facilities, when someone may, they were like, "Is she not trained?" I wanted to say, "No, somebody help me out here. What is X? I didn't know it was sagittal for this, horizontal, border cyst. I didn't know anything. I just took a guess at it, and guess what? I was wrong. Um, one of many times, I can admit that I was wrong. And so, it's about clear training of
Yeah.
what these roles and responsibilities. And I'm going to want to talk to even MR technologist to another MR technologist. So let's
Yeah.
say that the MR safety tech is actually um, between two other level two MR safety, MR scanning technologists.
Yeah.
They're going to want to turn around and talk to each other,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because the roles and responsibilities are different.
Right. Yep.
And so we have to make sure that they're clearly defined. We have to make sure that the MR safety techs are trained
Mm-hmm.
appropriately. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what's so critical is it's
Yeah.
about the education. It
Yeah.
is.
Yep. Yep. Even I'm going to go back to my comparison to scanning pacemakers. It is about the education. It is about knowing what these parameters are. Can we meet these parameters? How do we safely program their device to go into the MR environment? Who monitors this patient? There's a clear delineation of responsibilities, I believe, when it comes to scanning pacemakers. And I think remote scanning should be no differently if we want to do it safely. And I'd argue that both you and I want it done safely, and there's a whole slew of other people out there who want it done safely. So, Kristen, if you had to, maybe in a couple of sentences, if somebody said, "Give me," if somebody,
Me in a couple sentences. Okay, all right,
if,
you count.
if somebody said, "Give me an elevator pitch on what an MR safety tech does, or what an MR safety tech can do for your facility," and you don't have to limit it to remote scanning. I think my belief here is that an MR safety tech can also benefit a facility that has local technologists too. But if you had to give a two, three, four, I'm not going to limit you, but just a brief set statement on what the benefits of an MR safety tech, what would you say?
And first of all, I'm feeling the pressure of the sentence count. Um, so we are just now you've got me flustered. So we're going back to whether it's the MR scanning technologist is on the local side or if they're remote at whatever
Yeah.
location, correct? So,
Yeah.
and then we're talking about what would possibly be some of the differences as far
Hmm.
as the roles and what that MR safety tech would provide. Well, just for example, how many times have we said, watch my scan as an MR
Yeah.
tech? I'm going to run get my next patient.
Or I've got to
Okay,
go
I
to
think
the
I'm on sentence five. Okay. Okay. Do not
no
let's take out
pressure.
the okay, well then that's all they can do. Okay, that's okay. Okay. So what would happen is so then okay, that's check mark, next patient's here, but they can look at an EMR and say the next patient's here.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they come up and they say, Kelly, next patient's here. Tell me when you're ready. And I'll bring them back. And
Yeah.
then that's just a verbal thing. You're looking at your patient, you're scanning, you're saying, oh gosh, I forgot to do that as the balance technique. Not that Kelly would ever. Kelly Mantooth is not going to make a mistake. Kristan Harrington might. I might be calling you to figure out how to balance my TR and TE for flow compensation intrinsically. I don't know why I'm with the balance technique today. I have no idea.
We'll
I
run
think
with
it's
it.
because someone called me about it earlier, so I think that's why I'm going with it. So then you'll have these triggers based upon these standard operating procedures, whether they're
Yeah.
remote or whether they are, there with you.
Yep.
And then they'll know, okay, you'll say 15 minutes out. Well, they're going to know, well, okay, well, she gave me 30 minutes. Well, so they should be changed
Yep.
on Ferris quarantine.
Hmm.
We're not going to do our FMD at this point, right? I'm not going to do FMD until they are about to go over into
Right.
through the badge access,
Yeah.
remote controlled 007 doors, as
Yep.
I call them. That is the last. That that is the last thing. I've not even seen all the
Hmm.
movies, but that is secret. You don't get access unless you've got all the inspector gadget stuff.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so everything's been forced. And then also, you and Kelly have received that screening form.
Hmm.
Now, while you're scanning your patient, you look at the screening form and you say, you know what, I'm going to have to do some further research on this
Yeah.
patient. You do that as you can,
Hmm.
or you prioritize and you say, well, we've got a stat one. This one was going to go on, but and then you have a quick conversation, you do some research, and then you weave that in. But you've already taken that huge layer of all these phones.
Hmm.
Okay, so think about how we do not hear MRI scanners anymore. I don't hear them.
Unless they stop running, and then if they stop running, it's like something's weird in here.
Something is weird. Yes, you walk in and suddenly you don't hear that
Oh,
chirping.
it's like
Yeah, it's like
it's too quiet.
something's up. Yeah. Well, I would say that if the MR safety tech shows up and they don't hear that, they should alert someone that's
Yes.
either coming in
Yep.
or remote scanning. Hey, I don't hear
Hmm.
chirping.
Yep.
I mean, so
Yeah.
they would call service. So that's something that
Yeah.
they could do for you,
Yeah.
correct? Put
Yeah.
in a service ticket. So get the patient ready, do the screening, do that Ferris quarantine, things that are supposed to happen in zone two.
Hmm.
Give you that paperwork. You say, okay, nothing's flagged on here. Okay, you're level two. So that means before we go in, full stop, final check. I'm still going to check their
All of
bracelet. I'm
that.
still going
Yeah.
to do all of those different things, and then obviously if it's augmented for some sort of intensive care patient, something else, you'll do the additional checks that you have to do. Those are going to come down to a very important level. But sometimes if we only have the MR safety tech, they'll be doing those things.
Yeah.
Again, that specialized education comes
Yep.
from the needs of the facility and
Hmm.
how they set up their standard operating procedures.
Yep.
And then putting the patient on the table. Okay, I can go ahead and go back and wow, I can type my patient in. I don't have to guess their weight because guess what? My MR safety tech has
It's
actually
already
weighed
got it.
them.
Yep.
Yes, if I don't have a risk or some sort of hiss or
Yeah.
something that's going to pull it over, they've weighed them for me because we
Yeah.
actually do that need that for our correct, SAR models,
Yes,
SAR
we do.
models, whatever you call it. We need that correct height and weight data.
Hmm.
But I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm guessing half the time. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but
Yeah.
I've weighed like 115 pounds since I was 15, the first time I did my driver's license. I've never changed that
We're not letting it
seven.
go.
Well, I'm not letting go of it. And my son got his license when he was during COVID, and
Hmm.
he's 6'5" and 360 pounds, but he had to sit down in the chair to get his picture made. And I guess somebody else was paying attention, so they have him at 5'8"
Oh,
and 180 pounds. And he's 360 pounds and
oh
six
my
five and a
goodness.
half. But the camera wouldn't go high enough to take his
Oh my
picture.
gosh.
And he said he's sticking with it until he gets in trouble. I'm like, well, it's not your fault, buddy. I mean, these things happen, you know.
Oh.
So they're taking care of some of those things
Hmm.
that we really should not be taking care
Yeah,
of. And they're such an asset. If you talk to facilities, they're like, you know what? They really are. But and to a facility, and this doesn't mean a lot to us as the MR techs, there are cost savings as well.
yeah,
And again, the access to the exams. I like to be able to scan patients.
yeah,
I don't like saying, sorry, can't do
yeah,
you. Not
yeah,
going to be able to fit you in. And so
yeah,
this does help with all of that. But having these roles, as far as putting them in, okay, well, if I'm the MR safety tech, I need appropriate training.
yeah,
Because what's the number one reason that we have issues? Well, right now it's attributed to RF burns.
yeah,
So are they going to have to know how to pad properly? Yes.
yeah.
If they've given me information and it says my patient is 4'8" and
Hmm.
weighs 360 pounds, before we do the kilo 2.2, I'm
Yeah.
going to know that
Conversion.
they
Yeah,
are circumferentially enhanced. Okay,
yeah,
and we know that's just my PC way of saying that.
yeah,
They're on the larger habitus
yeah,
side.
yeah.
And so if they don't fit, they don't fit.
Right.
So that relationship, good point. That relationship of being able to, for you to not be like, what? You want to have that cohesive relationship
Hmm.
with your MR safety tech, whether they're right next to you or whether
Or
they're 6,000 miles away.
yeah,
They need to be, what is it? One a call away,
yeah,
especially if someone's remote and you lose connectivity
yeah,
for some reason.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that constant open line of communication, whether, on site and local together
yeah,
or remote and then the local MR
yeah.
safety tech. But with this comes training. You
Yes.
have
Yeah,
to have the training. So what's
yeah,
this all about? Well, there are certain training programs that already exist. I mean, I have to say, there's several that are coming out.
yeah.
Some are going to be, live in classrooms. Some are going to be online. Some are going to be live and online.
Hmm.
Lots of different information that's out there. But I've been on the board of directors for the American Board of MR Safety. I actually reached out to our administrator yesterday, and I want to say it was 2017, 2018. No one hold me to that. But I'm also now the current secretary treasurer.
Hmm.
And so, with that being said, I'm also I'm over the MRSO exam specification committee. And Kelly is one of my greatest assets on that. But I'm also on a really small exam specification committee, and it's the new credentialing for the MR safety tech.
Hmm.
And it's huge. It's coming. Trust me, I know because I'm on weekly calls about this. And I'm understanding not just what the roles and responsibilities are, but being educated by these different groups that are out there on how to do it
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah,
um, I'm hearing from large organizations, we want all. We have to do this. So we
yeah,
plan on doing remote scanning, in the next year,
yeah,
in the next 2 years. We want to make sure that all of our, you know, tech aides, as they're calling them, which are going to switch over to calling them MR safety techs because they
yeah,
only work in MR.
yeah,
They're no longer patient care tech aides. They are
yep,
MR safety techs. We want them all to be credentialed.
yeah.
And so the American Board of MR Safety is coming out with a credentialing,
Hmm.
and we are, on track to have it out and released in the next few months. And then I'll just leave it with that teaser, so to speak, because I may know more than I'm letting on to, but other
Hmm.
people want to speak to it. And as I learn more, I have another remote talk in just a few weeks. I may have more information that I can release
Yeah,
at that time,
yeah,
but it's here. And
yeah,
that credentialing will think about large institutions. I want to
yeah,
say, hey, you went through this training, you passed it,
yeah,
this. pretty high level exam, very high level exam,
Mm-hmm.
and you're credentialed.
Yep.
And so that also gives a big facility that sense of, ah, they've
Yeah.
been trained, they
Yep.
passed this. I feel
Yep.
comfortable having
Mm-hmm.
them be on with our large organization or even our smaller ones.
Yeah. I think, first of all, that's wonderful news. I think this is so beyond needed, especially for how long we've been doing remote scanning. But I think I've heard or I've seen technologists say, no one else can do safety but us. No one else can do safety but an MR tech. I've heard this and I've seen this, and I think that's a misconception. I even think about a difference in a technologist and an MRSO, and I think the credentialing for an MRST, it really does say, what do you need to know to do this job? Let's get you specialized in that, and I think it's, how do I say this? I don't think it's appropriate for us to assume that no one else can do safety but a technologist.
Let me just say this. I'm a legal expert witness, and if you want to say that, you might as well just say that only MR technologists can absolutely um, create beyond deleterious effects to any patient. And you've got my name. It's Kristan Harrington, and Kelly can give you my corporate, my company email. It keeps me very busy. She'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is done by technologists. So if
Yeah.
we want that type of control that we can only control safety, if we
Mm-hmm.
don't give up some of that control, Kelly, think
Yep.
about it. If we don't give up
Yep.
some of that, more things, and we all know about the Swiss model, more
Yeah.
things are going to start aligning and slipping
Yep.
through. And
Yep.
that's where accidents happen.
Yep.
And, a case I had a few years ago, it was his fourth scan of his lumbar spine within literally like 3 weeks. And on the fourth scan, it was burned down to the bone. The
Man.
fourth one. And so I can't really say any outcomes. It's already been
Right.
taken care of. It's been
Right.
done. But what I'm saying is getting by with it, to coin, several people that have said that doesn't prove it. And
Right.
yes, if we can only be the ones that provide safety, that means we can only be the ones that are overtasked that can actually be the part of the mistake.
Yep.
Not check after the first sequence to make sure the padding hasn't
Didn't move.
shifted.
Right.
Yes,
Yep.
all of these different things. Now, I like padding whether someone's thin or not,
Exactly.
because they put their arms out and then they get
Yep.
these large circuitry. That
Yep.
can create some sort of serious
Yeah.
pinch point,
Yep.
burn.
Yep.
Um, and so it just takes. Okay, okay. I don't know about you, and I'm not a control freak, Kelly. I'm not. Um, I have heard you are. I have, but I don't have any of these issues. Um, I will say that, anytime anyone new, whether it's an MRI technologist, whether it's an MR dedicated nurse,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's an MR safety tech, am I going to take them under my wing with good intentions? 100%.
Yeah.
But am I also going to be watching their every move to make
Yep.
sure they do it to the highest standard? Because that's what I want. Absolutely, as well.
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
both going to learn in the process? I may learn a better way to do things. I've been humbled so many times by
Mm-hmm.
other people. It's almost on a daily basis, especially
Yep.
by my children who know everything and they're in their teenage years. So, I mean, what I'm saying is that I think that, yes, as people that want to be in control of safety 100%, how can we be when we're always saying we're overtasked? We have to
Exactly.
start sharing that, and
Yeah.
it's going to benefit healthcare and radiology for our
And our
MR
patients.
patients.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. You made a comment earlier about multitasking, and I don't believe that we can multitask. I believe at best we task switch. And I think, like you said,
Uh-huh.
that's how things get missed. When you're trying to
Hmm.
switch back and forth between tasks, it's so easy for something to fall through the cracks. And I think if we can, safety should be everyone's responsibility collectively. But if we can bring other people in who are specifically trained in these things, then I think that helps take a little bit of that load off of us to be like, oh, I mean, you know, like you said, we're going to trust you, but we're going to verify. We're still going to watch you, but now we have an extra set of hands that knows what they're doing, that can come in and say, I can do this part for you. Why don't you go get the patient pulled up? I can position them, you know? And there's nothing saying that you can't look and say, okay, yeah, that meets my standards. We're good to go. But just having somebody kind of expedite those processes, but not just expedite them, do it safely. I think I see a huge benefit in that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And people approach me and be like, are they going to start my IVs? Are they going to do this? That's going to be a facility based decision, or that's going to be a state based decision. Those are things I can't answer for you. But what I can answer is, yeah, as far as ACR, screening your patients, as far as being able to give you that information, as far as there being very strong and robust training programs either there or coming down the tubes very shortly, and into the marketplace, I should say, very shortly. Having someone to call service saying, we're
Yeah.
having some issues with image quality on the machine behind me. I've had to switch to this one. Can you put in a service call?
Yeah.
And you don't need to be on call with service. You need to
Right.
have somebody else calling for you.
Hmm.
They need to actually know how to go into the equipment room. I think they do, and take it down to the wall. Who hasn't had to take things down to the wall? I mean, I know I have.
Same.
And just making sure the site access is restricted, because sometimes the
Hmm.
doors stay open too
Yeah.
long. You
Yeah. Or
know,
somebody wants to push that
there's
door open and come on in.
I cannot tell you right. And I really believe that they will actually give us over time. At first we're going to be like, oh, it's just you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not looking over my shoulder as much to see if it's
Yeah.
ICU nurses that have made it through, people that aren't specifically trained to
Yeah.
be in our environment. And then at some point it's going to be like, oh, hey, Kelly, I'm here. I've just got your stuff.
Yeah.
And you're going to know the voice, and you're going
Yeah.
to work seamlessly together, and you're going to trust them. Now, am I ever going to trust someone that fills up my IV, tubing for, doing like some sort of bolus track? No, I'm always going to go check to see if a line's bled through. There are certain things, it doesn't matter if it's you, Kelly, and I trust you 100, well,
Some
99.99%.
things we just want to check ourselves. Yeah.
Right. But, that's just me because I'm scared of that flashing button on
Hmm.
those injectors. But for almost every other thing, I really think that I know that Emory was so excited with having me for a year and a half as free labor for a year. And then,
Yeah.
trust me, extremely underpaid labor for the next 6 months. But it also gave me a pathway into MRI, because there was no
Yeah.
MRI school.
Yeah.
And so it also helps them out to help them with their career paths as well. So they want to please.
Yeah.
And so I just think there's so many benefits. And I don't want to, feel like I'm up here with a, do this. I don't get any kickbacks from these companies.
Yeah.
I don't get anything for saying these things. You
Yeah.
didn't hear me mention any names, and that's because I look at all of them.
Yeah.
And I just think it's again, it's here, it's been here,
Yeah.
and we have to
Yeah.
embrace it, and be a part of that change positively,
Hmm.
because we can make things go badly if we want to. Why not try and make it a positive experience?
Yeah. And maybe a little in depth, just like these pacemakers, where it's something that we're like, man, can't believe we ever had a time where we didn't have this, or where we didn't do this.
And or why don't we have it? Everybody else does.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that even better. I was gonna ask you. I mean, you stole the answer right out of my mouth. I was gonna ask you, what is something that you hope people take away from this? But I think that you said it best. It's here to stay. This modality continues to evolve every single year. I think this modality continues to evolve. And I think that our best approach now is to try to find a way to do this safely, because I don't think it's going anywhere. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would just say that it 1,000%, I do risk mitigations
Hmm.
and safety audits constantly. And
Yeah.
you know, MRI accidents are almost 100% preventable. I say 100%
Yeah.
because of something like a contrast reaction with nothing
Yeah.
previous on their record. So I
Yeah.
can't say 100%, but think about it. Now, having the advantages of implementing these MR safety techs I really
Mm-hmm.
think we can close some of those gaps.
Yeah.
And I really think that we can, like I said, with that anecdotal information, if we could get some real hard data, I do believe this will create a safer, more efficient, again, I'm going to add safer in between every word I say, environment for our patient, not just our patients, for everybody in the
Yeah.
MR department once they come into zone 3 and have access into zone 4. So you will
Yeah.
not get me to say anything negative about it until further notice, but I've been on this journey for years and years, as you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, it's such a pleasure having you on. Thank you for sharing your expertise with everybody.
Oh, it is my pleasure again. Thank you to you, Kelly. You're the best in every way, shape, or form with the ABMRS and what you do with all of your amazing talks with MetroSense. And I have to say thank you so much to MetroSense for having me be able to share my voice about this. I really do thank all of you.
Well, we're glad to have you. Hope that this has been very informative for everyone for MR Safety Week and beyond, because I hope that this continues to be a hot topic. And hopefully, you found something in this. And we hope, Kristen and I both hope, that you're having a fabulous 2025 MR Safety Week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you.